Thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure to be part of this event and to get to meet people that I already know from previous ICD activities and to meet new people as well. Well, let me first start by giving a relevant prelude before I talk about an important initiative that Mark asked me a few months ago to lead, the London-Paris Initiative for Lebanon. Of course, you all know corruption is there in so many countries across the globe in different facets and forms. During the Lebanese civil war, during 1975 to 1990, obviously corruption expanded. Additionally, Lebanon enacted laws to allow the governments to start borrowing in US dollars instead of Lebanese liras during late 1990s, which was, in my opinion of many, a mistake, and many parliamentarians expressed their opposition at the time when this law was voted in the parliament. This, in turn, increased national debt from less than the equivalent of $1 billion in Lebanese liras in the early 1990s to around $93 billion just before my cabinet took over in January 2020. The breakdown of this $93 billion was a third in Eurobonds, in US dollars, what we refer to as fresh dollars in Lebanon. We have a new term for dollars. That was worth about $31 billion, and the rest in Lebanese liras, which was the equivalent of about $62 billion at the time. It's useful to mention at this point that in Lebanon, the monetary and credit law regulates the work of the governor of the central bank on all issues concerning the stability of the national currency, as well as overseeing private banks in Lebanon. Someone, unfortunately, I had to, but I tried to change during April 2020 for many reasons I don't want to talk about now, after he spent almost 3 decades as governor of the central bank, turned out, in all honesty, to have more invisible power than the 3 presidents combined: the President of the Republic, the head of the Parliament or Speaker of the House, and the President of the Council of Ministers or Prime Minister. Today, several years later, and after he left his post in 2023, there are lawsuits on him from 7 countries in Europe, as well as by Lebanon, and only a few days ago, another lawsuit against him by the new governor of the central bank. I mean, this is unprecedented in central banks' history across the globe. Indicators of financial and economic collapse in Lebanon started since 2011. So if we look back at the bill of quantities in 2011, it went minus $2.5 billion for the first time in history and continued negative, reaching to about minus $6 billion. So as a result, during 2011 to 2019, around $50 billion left Lebanon from the National Reserve in the central bank as a result. The international SED program for supporting Lebanon in 2015, which was worth over $11 billion, never saw the light because governments were not implemented the needed reforms. Later, the following are some additional indicators for imminent financial banking collapse during 2019 before my cabinet took over. One, international financial institutions such as Fitch and many others put Lebanon's financial ranking at CCC minus level, which is practically almost a step before default level. This meant Lebanon could not borrow, a trend that started even before 2015. Sudden introduction of a black market exchange rate of the Lebanese liras US dollar exchange rate. The Lebanese lira US dollar exchange rate, which for 27 years was set at 1,507 Lebanese liras for $1, started changing in August 2019 and reached around 2,200 before my cabinet took over. In June 2019, banks reduced significantly granting loans for corporate and private sectors. Everybody knew, years before. October 2019, as a result of what have happened the past months and years at the time, the revolution started, the October 2000 revolution started, that wanted to oust all politicians and leaders that have been effectively or their children in power for decades. I'm sure you saw that on TV at the time. And banks closed their doors in October 2019, and 2 weeks later, when they reopened, stopped withdrawals from bank accounts. At the time, there were about 1.8 million accounts. So my cabinet of 20, formed on 21 January 2020, was the first of its kind in Lebanon. First of all, it was a small cabinet, so 20 was enough. There were a couple of ministers that had, the charge of two ministries. All ministers were technocrats that do not have membership in any political party, with 50% of the cabinet academics. They were academics before they became ministers, and they went back to academia after they left their ministries. 30% female, which was unprecedented in the MENA or Middle East and North Africa region, and assumed positions in pivotal ministries, including defense, which is rare in the West even, justice, labor, and so on. This cabinet was the closest to the specification of a technocrat cabinet in Lebanon. During my term, the deep state activated, and that's a whole story that requires hours, activated its full resources to derail the work of my government, to derail the first reform plan of its kind in Lebanon, which was unanimously voted on 30 April 2020, to derail forensic audit that reveals financial crimes, and the cabinet's draft law on lifting banking secrecy, which will reveal also financial crimes, stopping the capital control draft law, inhibiting our fight against anti-corruption, stopping a Lebanese IMF program that I called for on the 1st of May 2020, not because we were going to get $30 million from IMF, but it was, if you like, the stamp for us to open for Lebanon other funds from Europe, international, as well as our region, as well as stopping work to reverse billions of dollars that were selectively transferred to accounts outside Lebanon. Also stopping many important projects for political reasons only, such as the Bisri Dam project, which was going to provide fresh water to over 2 million people in Beirut and the surrounding areas. And today, Beirut is suffering as a result. And more importantly, working against a golden opportunity to allow Lebanon to overcome the financial and economic collapse, which was the result of decades of mismanagement before my cabinet was formed. Despite all of that, my cabinet passed 85 reforms in less than 6 months from the date we received the vote of confidence from the Parliament on 11 February 2020. Now, this leads me to the London-Paris initiative that we're announcing, which is a 10-year interparliamentary alliance organized by the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy, which Mark is the director of, and in partnership with global governance organizations, national parliaments, leading universities, and multinational corporations. The initiative is established for stability, development, and prosperity in Lebanon by bringing together parliamentarians, policymakers, business leaders, academics, and civil society representatives from the US, Europe, the Arab region, and beyond. The London-Paris initiative is intended to promote stability, impactful development, and long-term prosperity in Lebanon, supporting the country's economic growth, institutional resilience, and strategic role in the region. So if I want to go back to the reform plan, the first reform plan of its kind to address the financial and the economic collapse in Lebanon, as I said, due to decades of mismanagement, our reform plan addressed the needed. First of all, it was praised by the IMF, by the World Bank, by many countries in Europe and beyond, It addressed the needed reforms to put the Lebanese economy back on track and allow the rejuvenation of the banking sector. Without the banking sector, you have no economy. It also, I went out on media and I committed that 98% of depositors, these are all accounts that had $500,000 and below, was going back to depositors. We also committed to an exchange rate ceiling of 4,000 Lebanese pounds per dollar. Today, it's 90,000 Lebanese pounds per dollar, and it reached a couple of years ago about 144,000. The 98% of depositors now went down to about 85% and still on paper, meaning all those with accounts that has $100,000 or less, and even that has not started to be implemented. There's a draft law that has gone by the current government to the parliament a few days actually ago. Basically, I mean, it was a huge lost opportunity for Lebanon not to, we would have by now started to go back on track in terms of the economic and financial and banking resilience. So this London-Paris initiative, a good percentage of it is going to talk about the contents of our reform plan and allow experts to revisit how we addressed the reforms to put the economy back on track, the banking sector back on track, the financial, to address the financial collapse, the social reform issues, security issues, which are all interrelated, by the way, one way or the other. So when Mark suggested to me a few months back, why don't we do that? I said, well, that's a great idea, but it's going to generate a lot of pushback from politicians in Lebanon, the way they did, you know, when I was, because a lot of that goes along with the need for draft laws that, I mean, removing banking secrecy, for example, forensic audit, all of these things plus others are intended to eventually reveal financial crimes. Nobody wants to do that, okay? I mean, we're talking about almost $200 billion of money that has disappeared over the past few decades. For a country as small as Lebanon, with just 10,452 square kilometers, 6 million people, it's a small country. That's a lot on a per capita basis, okay? And at the end of the day, who's paying the price? The average depositor, the average person that has $10,000 in the bank or $5,000 or, I mean, as I said, 85% of depositors have $100,000 or less. These are paying the price. And of course, the whole problem started when we approved the reform plan. We suddenly got pushback from a parliamentary committee, a subcommittee of the Parliament Committee for Finance. And they were attacking us because we were so transparent. For the first time, we said, listen, guys, there's a $69 billion black hole in the central bank. And of course, everybody was against that, and you know, they started meeting as a subcommittee to attack the plan, and we hadn't even sent the reform plan. We voted on it in the cabinet, but we were also waiting to vote on some of the draft laws that should go alongside with it. We hadn't even sent this folder to the parliament to consider it, and they started attacking from May 2 or May 3, and the attacks continued to the extent that they saw the IMF, and the IMF said, listen, guys, what the numbers, because they were saying 69 billion, no, it's 40 billion, others say 30 billion, others say 20 million. The central bank governor said 0 billion at the time. And there was a book that was published 2 years ago by the Minister of Finance in my cabinet that minuted the discussion that took place between the IMF and this subcommittee, which told the subcommittee, everything you're saying is wrong. The numbers that the cabinet has introduced in the reform plan is completely correct. And now they have accepted, with the new reform plan that is based on ours, that 72 billion is the gap. So wasted time. And so the idea behind this initiative is to allow experts, not just a few people from all across the world, to say this is it. And we're hoping to generate a white paper every year, because every year, this is a 10-year initiative, we're going to have a forum every year which will address a section of the overall problem, so the economic issues, financial issues, banking issues, social issues, and so on, and generate on an annual basis, as a result, a white paper that we submit to whoever, the government, the parliament, NGOs, granting agencies, anybody that can benefit from it. This is our opinion, And hopefully, during that time, we would be able to cover all the needed issues for the purpose of helping Lebanon and putting Lebanon back on track. Thank you.